This is Jerry Taylor interviewing Mr. John Graham, February 29th at 10 a.m. in the Simpkins Building, WIU, for English 482. Well, first of all, thank you for doing this with me.
My pleasure.
All right. According to Epilogues, Dean of the School of Education, Dr. Frederick Abel, wanted to make the lab school highly innovative in a showcase school where all may learn. Do you think that's an accurate description of the lab school when you went?
Definitely, yes. My forte was in maybe the arts, although I enjoyed sciences for some reason. Maybe I didn't have the patience for counting frogs in a pond or something. But and athletics was not my strong suit, but yet I still feel I flourished in my own way in the environment and was exposed to the broad range of subject areas.
Speaking of, the lab school had both college students and high school students. Did you ever interact with those college students?
Yes, quite often. In one manner, it was a more formal way where there was a 301 class or 201, I forget. I think it's a 301 education class that college students took in the education department, where they actually observed us in the lab school. In that sense, we were like lab rats, I guess. But they would observe us in the classroom environment and how we functioned, and then actually have personal interviews and home interviews as well with the parents and family. And those were always pleasant. And in fact, one of the people that observed me, I was their case study is what they refer to it as, and his name was Martin DeWitt, and he recently retired from Cullahee, I think it's Western Carolina University. But he was director of their art museum there. And it turns out we both ended up in the museum field, and I'd seen him in Washington, D.C. at the national conference on a couple of occasions. And we even invited him to serve as an internal reviewer for the University Art Gallery when I was employed here as the curator of exhibits for the Western Illinois University Art Gallery. So he came in 1993 and did an interesting interview again after all those years. Wow. And that would have, his first contact with me would have been probably in 66 or so. 1966, maybe even 65, I think.
Now, you graduated in the class of 69, I believe?
Yes. Mm-hmm. That was the first year to graduate out of the new building, Horvan Hall. Many of us didn't really care for that building. I think we had grown attached to this fine piece of architecture. I think we're currently sitting in the biology room with Mr. Mills's and Mr. Kellogg's environment. But I see it's been carved up quite a bit into offices, and the ceiling's been lowered. But somehow, looking out the window, I can still see the neighborhood and the area where we used to have PE, and I don't think we can see there in the distance are the trees for Wigwam Hollow's graveyard that's currently being investigated and looked into for some historic preservation efforts because it was one of the early graveyards in the area. But that was always visible, and I lived over just off of Campus View Drive there. So
a lot of history around here.
Quick walk. Mm-hmm.
How long were you at the University Art Gallery?
From 1992 until just this year. I retired in 2012, so my last day was December 31st.
Well, I should say congratulations. You went to school, you graduated here in 1969, and I know that was a year of activism in Vietnam. Did you ever experience anything like that around here?
Yes, it was quite a time. Actually, 1968 was a more interesting, volatile year, I think, in many ways. That was the year of the assassinations of the Kennedy candidate and Martin Luther King, and it was just not a good time. The Vietnam War was in full force, and many students didn't like that and expressed their opinions there for sure. In fact, I was in a band in high school with Fred Reynolds. His name was later Paul, and he went on to, he was a senior, I think, at the time, and he graduated and from Western, football star and everything. You know, he was really talented, not only on the field but also as a writer and good at expressing his opinions. And he ended up, I think he was an English major or journalism major, but ended up being the editor of the Courier. And so that was a very good pedestal point to marshal up ideas for change, and he was one of my classmates that really did a good job of that, I would say. And he also played a good guitar. Well, we had quite a bit of fun.
About the assassinations, you said in 1968, Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King. What did that raise on campus? Was there outcry among students?
Just yes, social awareness. I mean, you know, the inequities that were going on with the civil rights movement and towards the height of that time. You know, the March on Washington was not too far distant, and the civil rights movement was definitely gaining awareness of everybody, and actually getting some results. And I think people saw the ability to voice their opinions could affect change, and so that was an encouragement. Even though there were bad things about the times, it was also a time of great change. Even little things like I remember one of the people that was one of my case study people. She lived in the Olson Hall, I believe, and I think back then, maybe even as far as 68, maybe 67, 66, something like that. They had hours at 9 o'clock. How are you supposed to go to the movie and get back home before they locked the doors at 9 o'clock? They couldn't wear blue jeans, things like that. So it was a quick change in the freedoms that were allowed. Also, it was a huge time of growth for the university. I think in 63 or so, the enrollment was about 4,000, and in 69, 73, I think, in that range, it was up to about 19,000. There was a lot of building going on the campus. I think 1960 Brown Hall was completed. 67, I think, was the new library, the Malpass Library. I have an interesting story about that. The library. I think when they built the Memorial Hall Library in the late 50s, that's currently still known as Memorial Hall, but it was a library built for a library. And I have clear memories of moving books from the old library in the registrar area of Sherman Hall to the new Memorial Hall Library. But we were grade school kids, and we just lined up like a book brigade, like a bucket brigade, only with books. We just passed books from one kid to the next in a line all the way over to the library. I mean, now they have the physical plant movers take care of most of those kinds of things. But I think we were pleased to help. It was a fun group project. We felt good about it.
Were you observed when you guys were doing that as well?
Oh, I haven't a clue. Probably somebody thought, isn't that nice or something? Look at all the money we're saving to get this job done.
You talked about people not being able to wear blue jeans and the doors being locked at certain times. I was curious, was there a dress code specifically in high school?
I think there were some guidelines, but I don't clearly remember that. One thing, every year our principal, Waldo Horban, who was here for many, many years, when he would gather us for our assemblies for the first of the year, he would say, around here at Western, we only have one rule, and that's to use common sense. And I still think that's pretty good approach. I mean, it seemed to work. I don't think we got out of line too much. And it just seemed to kind of cover all the bases real simply, and also put some of the responsibility for rules and behavior on ourselves. So what do you think?
Yeah.
You just use common sense, for God's sake. And it seemed to work. He used it every year, repeatedly, so I think he liked that approach. It also allowed for freedom and maybe some interpretation of what common sense means, which fosters thought and discussion in a reasonable manner, I think, which I think when he ran into difficulties, he probably used those elements to resolve issues.
So would you, in your opinion, would you say that you guys in the lab school were offered a little more freedom than a regular high school?
I don't know. On retrospect, maybe I think we did have freedom to flourish, you might say. I think that was an overriding philosophy of the education here is, explore. We were allowed to explore and learn from mistakes, for instance. The Dewey philosophy of learning through experience. I mean, if you get burned, you aren't going to touch the flame.
Not going to do it again.
But that's how you learn that. So I think we were given the freedom to fail and learn from it. In that sense, yeah. As far as social freedoms, I think we were a fairly progressive environment, surrounded by the university as well. That probably had an impact, especially well, at any time. I think the universities are places where new ideas are always tried, and we were part of that environment.
We touched a little bit on dress code and grooming standards. From a yearbook picture and epilogues, I saw that you sported a mustache at one point.
I did.
And I was curious, did you wear socks?
Yes. And sandals in the summer.
Sandals in the summer. The reason I asked is, I believe Warren Abbott, a classmate of yours, said it was the cool thing at one point was not to wear socks, or something of that effect.
I think I missed that. That was his class. He was one class above me. I think that would maybe be fashion plate. What was his name? Scott Zarin that promoted those ideas with loafers. But I think I always wore socks with loafers. But I also had some burgundy beetle boots I used to wear when I was in the rock and roll days.
Speaking of rock and roll, I imagine your favorite subject at school would have been band.
Well, actually, it was more like orchestra.
Orchestra?
Mm-hmm. The social room that we were originally planning to meet in was actually an important room for me in that regard. At Western, we had a grade school orchestra and a junior high school orchestra and a high school orchestra. So all the way through, from the early times, we had a lot of opportunities to learn and play music. And if you were going to be in orchestra, you had to get up earlier and get to school an hour early so you could go to the social room. Even in the third grade, it was early. And that was your rehearsal area. So the grade school rehearsed there. The junior high and the high school orchestra rehearsed in the room next to the cafeteria area on the first floor. And those were very enjoyable moments for me. I think I enjoyed orchestra, not only the rehearsals but the performances. In fact, the current recital hall that's an extension of the Simpkins building, it used to be at the gymnasium, but that's where we performed our music usually, on the gym floor. And it's kind of a neat thing that they still use that space to present music, although it's designed now to present music as opposed to being a gym, but that's kind of cool. I think the floor of the recital hall stage is made from the remnants of that old gym floor, in fact, which is kind of cool. And I remember we had a class reunion the summer before they tore up the gym, and we had a summertime, I think it was in June, around Heritage Days time, that we had I didn't play in the band. It was some buddies of mine that were younger classmates that Tom Mummert, for instance, and David Swain, the drummer, although I did play in a band with David occasionally. And Thierry Chic, she was also in that, and Eileen Nielsen, I believe. I mean, just a lot of good memories, and then it was kind of cool to do one last gym dance there. And one band that I was in ended up, this was again rock and roll we're shifting to now, but one band I was in played after the game dances in the old study hall, which is now the English grad students areas up just off the writing center upstairs.
Oh, yes.
And so after the football game on Hanson Field, the high school played there. The Cardinals was our name. I was more of a spectator of that rather than a player, but Paul Reynolds, or Fred Reynolds, was a football star, you might say. He was really, really good at it. And we play in the band upstairs. I did bring a photo of that group. There's me with my nice Gibson. I wish I still had it. And used paper route money to buy that. And then there's Fred, or Paul Reynolds, and that's 67.
And you said that was a Gibson guitar?
Mm-hmm. Gibson Les Paul Custom SG style. It was pretty sweet.
I talked to Darla's mama.
Yes, mm-hmm. She's one of my favorite people. Yes.
She fondly recalled in one of our classes for this life writing course, she recalled fondly of parties she would go to, and she said you and your band would be playing. Do you recall those parties?
Yes, clearly. They were real fun. In fact, they were in basements of people's houses, or one kid lived on the outskirts of town, and we played in the middle of a corn crib. And one of our classmates used a milk can as a drum. I mean, we just had fun, but played Rolling Stones songs and Animals, House of the Rising Sun, you know. A few Beatles numbers. Kinks were popular. We didn't do too much original material in those days, but we that's where we got our start. Actually, was playing for those class parties, just at somebody's house, and then it grew to playing at the after the game dances, more formal kinds of, I guess you'd say, sanctioned events by the high school, and then we even played for tea parties and things in the end.
Darlis also said she recalled that you guys would play for $2 or $3, and all the potato chips you could eat for pancakes. Do you remember that kind of thing?
Oh yeah. We weren't in it for the money too much, but it was just fun to do. In fact, after school, we'd go down to one of the band members' house and set up in the basement. I mean, right after school, pretty much, and then we'd be there till 7 or 8 at night, and just learning our craft and just having fun. It was good, productive time spent, I think, and actually something to do with our buddies, just that was productive, I think, and time well spent. And I think I hung with the band members as my social conduit, kind of like I do today. I'm in a ukulele group and enjoy the camaraderie of that organization. And Monmouth Civic Orchestra, I've been in that for 11 years. It's an amateur orchestra, a teaching orchestra. We have more experienced players playing along with younger players. And just have fun rehearsing and performing a couple of concerts a year at this point. And the Rotary has asked our ukulele group to play next Tuesday. In fact, we played for the ukulele bunch. We played for the Bushnell Elementary School Hawaii night last week. I mean, it's just, So it's something to get me out of the house and have fun and meet and be with wonderful people. And so I think music provided that outlet for me in many ways. It was my social outlet, just like sports were for the athletic students.
So you definitely continued your passion for music after high school.
Oh yeah. And my passion for the museum field actually started, as I looked back, on a third grade class trip to Dixon Mounds, where I saw a skull with a hole in it, and the label explained as best they could what they thought it was, and I was just amazed at the ability of an object to have a story like that, and that stuck with me to the point where I ended up incorporating that into what I'm interested in general. The material world, you might say, fascinates me, and different cultures, products that they make over time. It's just fascinating that objects can do that, whether it's a painting or a pot or a musical instrument, an old instrument. It's got a lot of character, and you just imagine who might have played it, what kind of sounds might have come out of it, what the time was when it was first made.
So your time at the art museum, you must have enjoyed it immensely.
Oh yeah, it was the best job on campus, actually.
You have so much history here.
Yeah, it's. I have deep roots. Actually, my family has a very long taproot going back to the formative years of Western. Not only the lab school, but my grandmother graduated from here in 1902 with a certificate that allowed her to teach in a one-room school. And I mean, that's got to be like close to the first class that they had. And we have that certificate. And then my parents both went here at Western and met here. And
what are their names?
Burdette Graham and Martha Graham. Martha King was her maiden name when she was a student. And my brother and sister, Buzz, my brother, was 2 years older than me, and my sister was 4 years older than me, Marcia. They sort of showed me the ropes of getting around. One thing fun was we lived on Murray Street in the early years, and between our home and the lab school was something known as the Ravine, and it's currently still a combination of a parking lot down below the physical plant area, and then over near the Washington Lincoln dorms, and then there's a married student housing area still there. I think it's called graduate housing now. But those were all woods when I was a kid. And there was an exposed creek. It was really more of a sewer, I think, but an exposed creek that ran through it with stone bridges. And I had to walk through those woods on the way to and from school. And that was great fun, and that we made trails in the woods and did all kinds of fun things there, and just had we'd see ice on the creek, and we'd go down and break the ice and walk home with muddy feet and get in trouble for that. But it was quite an enjoyable time to grow up in Macomb, I think, at that time. And kind of feel sorry for kids that don't have that close contact with nature on a daily basis, and the ability to be a part of all that.
Did you ever go sledding on Hanson Field?
Hanson Field, and also in the ravine next to the sidewalk. We would go down there, but also some of the steep hills on Hanson Field. That was fun, and also on the golf course. I remember a golf course story. I had Harry Musato was our PE teacher in junior high, and he taught us golf. We had a golf unit, and I learned the Musato grip. And he was quite famous as a golfer. I don't think we knew that at the time that he was our teacher, but we respected him. So I went golfing. I was pretty good, but not to where I was great or anything. But one day I hit the golf ball into the rough down near the Lemoyne River area, and went into the woods, and there was a big morel mushroom patch, and those are real good if you fry them up with egg and batter. I ran home and got 2 grocery bags and filled them up with mushrooms, and sadly I haven't been golfing since, but although I have fond memories of the golf course. But unfortunately, I think they built one of the dorms, I think it's Higgins and what's the other one? Thompson and Higgins.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't stand
that were built on that mushroom patch, unfortunately. So, during the 60s, the late 60s, mid 60s to late 60s, the incredible building boom that went on here was witnessed. All the dorms were going up. We didn't have the need for so many places for students to stay back in the earlier days, and just the population, from about 4,000 to nearly 20,000, or 19,000, I think was the cap near that, in about 1960, 1970. 71, 72, that time was, I think, the height of the enrollment at Western. I did graduate from Western, and then ended up from Western High, and then ended up going to Western Illinois University. A brief time at Carl Sandburg in Galesburg. And then I think I spent a year there, and so I got out of town a little bit, but then came back to Western and finished in '73. And then I ran an art supply store for 7 years and sold it, and then came back to Western for the graduate program in art, and from 1982 to 1984. And that was fun as well. Completely different time. And that's where I found more of a focus in the museum field. And during that time, I reacquainted again with Martin DeWitt, who had observed me as a case study subject back in the early 60s. So Martin and I go way back, and he just recently retired. I just saw nice notice of his outstanding career in the music field. Another Western grad. He was a bit older than me, but still, we retained a friendship over many, many years.
As far as your music goes, what would you say is your favorite position and your favorite instrument? Whether it's orchestra, band, rock and roll.
Of all of them, huh? I think I can proudly say second violin, and it has beautiful harmonies in its parts, although we don't have the melodies as much as the first violins, but we enjoy the opportunity to lay on several nice harmonies and counterpoint to the melodies, and I guess you could say it's a supporting role. And I think that fits me pretty well. I don't consider myself very much a leader, but where would leaders be without some followers, some support, So I think that fits my personality and my comfort zone, you might say. I don't really like doing solo performances, and so an orchestra is a more comfortable environment, I think.
More of the team effort.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ukulele group, similar. I mean, it's just real fun to be in that group, and then the rock and roll era. That was always fun, but it was a thing that I was drawn out into the big crowd, you might say, that I would not otherwise probably have participated in as much had it not been for music as a way to be a part of the big scene, I guess. The social structure. If it wasn't for music, I'd probably not be out there quite as much. And stay at home, read a book. Okay.
What was your favorite thing to play on the guitar?
Song or
song
or
riff, or
type of. Oh gosh. What was or is?
Either or.
I think,
Or is.
I think a Yardbirds song had a nice. Several Yardbirds songs had nice little lead riffs. I'm trying to think of. Whiter Shade of Pale was a nice thing, but that's more for the piano and organ as far as shining. Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. There's
so much good music to play, huh?
Yeah, over the years. I mean, Lies by the Knickerbockers had a good lead part. I think that qualifies as one of the most fun to play.
Speaking of fun, what doesn't necessarily have to be fun, but what is your fondest memory being here in the Simpkins building, or one of the fondest?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. There was just so much. It was Well, like I mentioned, I suggested we meet in the social room because that's where the day started for me, and from third grade through several days. I think those practice rooms for the orchestra were a high point. But all the teachers really were great. I think we poked fun at some of them, maybe, just, because that's what kids would do. But I think we respected everybody. They imparted a lot of useful knowledge. I had a business teacher, Miss Wheeler. We had a business class, and when I was a freshman, learned all about sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation. Did a report, interviewed people downtown that had businesses and how they got started. I ended up starting a business. Just from the information from that one class. And
that's a great experience.
From a freshman in high school, and who would have thought, because I was more into music in that class, but I enjoyed the class. And Miss Wheeler was a great teacher. That's just one example. My high school art teacher, my grade school art teacher, Mr. Swain, he took us outside and showed us the textures and the colors of nature and the rhythms and the patterns that are out there. And just did a great job in the early years. You look at a seed pod and then bring it home, pick it up, and then staple it to a piece of cardboard and paint it up. You get a close look at these things from nature and you incorporate them into your art. That was just really good as far as an awareness, a sensory awareness of our environment. And then the high school art teacher, he always took us to the University Art Gallery. That was Don Scharfenberg. And I ended up having him as a grad student, which was kind of unusual. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
So I had him in the formative years in high school, and I think that was 68. So one of my projects, I took an old beat up guitar and smashed it up even more and made a collage out of it. And then I think there was a stick on it, and I wrote, "These are times to try one's soul," on it. I was real emo about it. Well,
modern
emo came much after. We never called it that. It was just a nice expressive collage using interesting materials, and fortunately it wasn't a valuable guitar. It's already beat up and broken, but it changed its function from a musical instrument to a material for a collage. And that was a high school art project, so he encouraged us to explore possibilities for materials and expression of ideas. So that was great. And then science, Mr. Kellogg, he used to point out the moon phases, and we pay attention to how the moon phases worked, and how that connected with the animal life, and they were all great teachers. Miss Buckley was a great English teacher, high school English teacher. The librarians were wonderful. The elementary librarian, what was her name? Well, the high school librarian, Lois Mills, was quite helpful. And then I'm drawing a blank on Miss Evans. She was a grade school librarian. She would read to us. And There was another librarian, Mrs. Graff. She was real good. They just helped us to learn in so many ways, and I think our classmates were a little rough on them as far as, but it was through humor. We'd make fun of their unique traits at their expense, but Miss Getchy, who ended up marrying Bill Sanders, who actually was in the art department as well, but Miss Getchy was, I think, third or fourth grade art teacher, and she always wore an orange scarf and a stylish matching horn-rimmed kind of black glasses with a little orange to match, and then had a white Chevy convertible. She was really a classy teacher.
Sounds like
she still can be found at the university library weaving. That was her main thing, to teach weaving in the college era, and she's still active as a supporter of the university, and still active making things on that loom that's in the library right now. And the Sanderses, Bill and Joe Sanders, have been real supportive of the art gallery over the years and the library, and they just were wonderful teachers. And I just can't say enough about the place. It was a fun place to be.
I want to thank you, John, and I appreciate the interview, and it was great getting your perspective on it and telling me your story. So again, thank you. And to close with, I just want to say, do you think Simpkins is haunted?
It's definitely got a lot of spirits. It's got a lot of spirits in it. Spirit and spirits, I think, inhabit it on a regular basis. Yeah. Only good spirits, though.
And in close proximity to a graveyard as well.
Yes.
To boot.
To boot.
Well, thank you, John, very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. And this is the end of the interview.